Rugby World Cup Final 2023, folks. I sit here pretty gutted, but it was a hell of a final. 1 point game. South Africa, bloody hell, man. Quarterfinal, semi-final, final. 1 point games. I don't know how you guys can suffer through it, but you get a World Cup, so why not, man? Enjoy the clippies. What can I say? I'm going to go through some key events and some stats of what was a crazy final. I said before the bloody game, please, just no cards. We had 4 of them. 4 cards. I feel like the semis and the quarters were pretty good with the cards. 4 cards in a final kind of sucks, but it was a hell of a game. It was a hell of a game. Both sides legitimately could have won it. South Africa easily the best side in the first half. New Zealand, hell of a comeback in the second half. But just not quite enough. Goal kicking for New Zealand maybe proved the difference. Pollard was 100%. Drop goals were awry. But anyway, I will attempt to gather my thoughts. And you guys can let us know your thoughts on what was a fitting final. A hell of a final. Both sides in the rain. A bit of boot to ball early, which makes sense. It's a final. Nobody wants to get caught in their own end. And then New Zealand, my mum said literally right at the start of the game, discipline's going to be key. New Zealand, yellow card. Frizzell with a poor clean out on Mbonambi means Mbonambi leaves the field with a leg injury. Means South Africa, who only really have Deon Fourie, who's more been deployed as a loose forward than a hooker, has to play a World Cup final for the vast majority of the game. In the hooker spot, Mbonambi was probably put down to go 80. He ends up going like 3 minutes. Frizzell gets carded for it. Pollard slots the resulting penalty. It's a bad start from New Zealand, but obviously it's a high price to pay from South Africa. But Fourie comes on and makes a million tackles anyway. Even if the lineout's not quite 100%, he certainly makes his presence felt defensively. And then South Africa, during the yellow card, man, they apply the pressure. They go through some phases. Pollard puts a nice up and under, and Mo'unga proceeds to drop it. Geordie Barrett has to kind of scramble it out, but we're not really able to exit. South Africa executing all of that pressure. The next couple Mo'unga did actually manage to catch, and South Africa, you could just feel them. If it was an arm wrestler, you could just feel them just squeezing the All Blacks, guys. There was no time on the ball. And, you know, even if you caught those high balls, you were immediately getting smashed. Pieter-Steph Toit was everywhere. Deserved man of the match in this one. South Africa did go through a bunch of phases after one of their cross kicks had pushed right into New Zealand territory. Bodie Barrett got smashed into touch. New Zealand conceded a penalty for not rolling. So it's another penalty for South Africa. Pollard slots that one. 6 points to 0. Yellow card is over. So New Zealand kind of conceded 3 points from the yellow itself, and then 3 points during the yellow. So in the scheme of things, maybe not that costly, but still 6 points behind with a man down at the start of a World Cup final. Not ideal. And then New Zealand actually managed to get a little bit of momentum into the game when to Klerk conceded a penalty for a tackle off the ball. New Zealand, interestingly, opted for touch. 10 phases. South Africa conceded another penalty. All Blacks' hands were ambitious in this weather and often let them down, but rains a lot in New Zealand, so these guys know how to handle the wet pill, but they opt for a penalty at last, so 6 points to 3. But then a costly one, Artie gets pinged pretty much straight from the restart for not releasing, so that 3 points the All Blacks have worked hard to get immediately nullified. It breaks my heart whenever you see a side. I don't care who it is. It's usually Scotland who does it the most, but conceding points immediately after scoring is frustrating. But 9 points to 3. New Zealand started to turn up the up and unders. Willemse was having to catch a bunch of those. Some of them he didn't deal with. Some of them he did. One thing I was impressed by was Willemse's kicking. Clear was pretty good on the exit plays. He was generally getting pretty bloody good meterage out of his kicks, which was getting South Africa out of the territory they didn't want to be playing in. Eventually, though, once Willemse did get caught by Cody Taylor and pushed into touch, so New Zealand had a chance in South Africa's field, like 22, but then New Zealand proceeded to lose a lineup. New Zealand's lineup was pretty good, but they lost a couple of key attacking ones in New Zealand, in attacking territory. So in the scheme of a World Cup final, man, when you're going to look back at things to point the finger at, the couple of lineups they lost were really bad ones to lose. Sam Cane. On 28 minutes, 27, it's a high tackle on Kriel. And it's not a good look. It's not a good look. At the time when I was watching it, I was thinking maybe they can find some mitigation. Because it's a final. Maybe they will say, they don't want to send off the captain with a red card. But it's a pretty textbook, far too upright, clatter somebody in the head red. So there's not a lot you can complain about with it. You need to bend at your waist. How many times have we seen it for the last, couple of years? Yeah. It's a yellow initially. Goes for the off-field review. Like I said, I can't complain about it, man. You just don't do that. So, yellow card combines with the fact that New Zealand kick it dead. Not long later. It's not looking great. South Africa go for drop goals. They must have gone for at least 4 during the game. Willemse goes for 1, but it's too short. Will Jordan got smashed by Pieter-Steph du Toit. And anytime New Zealand were getting some possession, they were getting pushed backwards. Kitshoff wins a penalty at the breakdown. Goes to 12-3. And New Zealand get the bad news that the card is being upgraded to red. So it's a red card in a World Cup final with only, just under half an hour of the game gone. New Zealand have got an uphill battle being 9 points behind, but they didn't do a bad job of it because that's the final scoring for South Africa. That's the final scoring of the game, which seems insane. That you can win a game, but the last points you scored were around about like the half an hour mark. But New Zealand got advantage after a big mark Tele'a carry. Rico Ioane had gone close in the corner. It was curtly Arendse with a great defensive play. But, New Zealand managed to get the last 3-pointer before half-time. So we go into the sheds at 12 points to 6. As I said, South Africa has played better in that first half, for sure. They've played the territory game well. Defensive pressure has been immaculate. You look at the stats. Like New Zealand has 63% possession, but they've only managed 44% territory. So South Africa's controlling the territory. And South Africa is tackling at 91%, which is elite test level. Anything above 90 is fantastic. New Zealand's at 85. They've only had to make 46 tackles to South Africa's 105. So 85 is fine. 91 is fantastic. Pieter-Steph's already made 14 out of 15 tackles in the first half. And Will Jordan, the guy who's top equal try scorer of all time for a single World Cup, has had 3 run meters. That's what I'm talking about at the first half kind of being quiet. Penalties considered as 5-4, but obviously New Zealand's had the 2 cards. Second half, New Zealand start with a bit of a scare. South Africa get held up. Kolisi maybe could have passed it, but Allende is able to go close, gets held up. So if that had been a could have been all over. And then Willemse goes for another drop goal shot from the resulting goal line dropout. It doesn't really get close. But yeah, it's a scare. And then curtly Arendse goes bloody close as well. He's got a foot and touch from a grubber kick through. So yeah, South Africa has come out of the blocks firing and my heart is sinking. But I feel like South Africa's momentum shifts from here because Kolisi gets yellow carded for a shot on Savia. At the time, I was watching it with my folks. Contact seems to mostly come through the shoulder. So our thoughts at the time were that it's probably going to be yellow. And sure enough, it stays yellow. But what can New Zealand do when it's 14-14? Tele'a wins a high ball, which is great. Gets some field position. Bongi ends up knocking it on. Chance gone. More 14-14. New Zealand go for the corner with a penalty. They maul it, and they try the ambitious hands. Will Jordan ends up knocking it on. So 2 big chances defensively controlled by South Africa. New Zealand missed their chance. 55 minutes. New Zealand finally looked to have scored. Geordie Barrett with a big carry. Mo'unga with a great bit of carrying. Bamboozles Willemse with his footwork. Sends Aaron Smith over. But there's a knock-on in the build-up. And it was clear, man. I was sitting there watching it with my folks. And when they had that line out, it looked like there was a knock-on. It's like, oh, they're going to play on. And it's one of those ones where you wish they'd kind of blown at the time because you get all excited. But, yeah, blowing off, but still back for a penalty. New Zealand off for touch again. It looks like Fourie has been able to strip it, but there's a penalty conceded for South Africa. New Zealand off for touch again. They maul it. They get advantage. And finally, someone, and I'll take a small mercy out of this one, we finally score a try against South Africa in a World Cup final. Nobody's ever done it before. Managed to get 1 try, and it's Bodie Barrett. Goes over in the corner. Tele'a was the one who probably made it up, and then Bodie finishes it off. So Tele'a's a hard man to bring down. A few South African guys will be gutted that they missed tackles on him, but he is a hard man to bring down. Big conversion from the sideline. Missed. So South Africa stay 1 point in front. And New Zealand keep applying pressure, man. Kolbe puts in a big tackle on Will Jordan. Quokka Smith's able to get a strip. Oxenchair is able to handle a ball. Fingertips like above his bloody back of his neck and shoulders. It's pretty incredible. Kolbe takes a knock to the leg, but he's able to play on. Kolbe goes for a drop goal on 70 minutes, but it's not really close. And then he gets a yellow card on 72 minutes for a deliberate knock on. And he is distraught, Cheslin Kolbe. He doesn't want to be that man who cost them a World Cup final. Luckily for him, he doesn't, but New Zealand has had a shot to win it. Geordie Barrett, and he's kicked that kind of goal before. Geordie Barrett with a decently long-range kick at goal. He's got the distance, but he doesn't have the accuracy. Pushes it wide. Could have won it. Not to be. All Blacks have got a forward pass not long later when they are legit looking dangerous. You feel like that's going to be the game. South Africa have got another drop goal attempt in them, but Ardie Savea manages to get a mitt to it. All Blacks push. South Africa, they surrendered some metres, but they never surrendered like a proper clean break at the death. New Zealand ended up knocking it on, forcing a 50-50 pass. It ends with a scrum. South Africa are able to secure the ball from scrum time under a heck of a lot of pressure. And it ends up with a kind of maul stoppage. So referee blows up. The game is done. Sucks that they had a red card because I don't want that to be a talking point. That was a hell of a final. Absolute game of two halves. South Africa win the first half 12-6. New Zealand win the second half 5-0. But miss a couple of goals. Not to be. South Africa's defensive shift. They end up making 259 tackles to the All Blacks 93. Like, it's insane. It's defense that sometimes wins World Cups, isn't it? Like, New Zealand had 7 clean breaks to 3, 36 defenders beaten to 13, 481 run meters to 359. They had 60% possession. They actually ended up edging the territory because they had 60% territory in the second half. But not enough. 1 try and a couple of missed goal kicks, not enough. South Africa conceded 10 penalties to 5. There was 2 cards each. Obviously, one of them was red to New Zealand, 2 yellows to South Africa. The line out New Zealand was 20 out of 22, which is pretty solid. South Africa with Fourie throwing 6 out of 10, but maybe that was going to be the case with the kind of backup guy having to do the main job. But I don't want to give Fourie any grief, man, because he made 21 out of 22 tackles. He was immense. Tele'a was dangerous, 9 defenders beaten, 67 run meters. Savea had 4 defenders beaten and 40-odd run meters. Trying to push his side forward. Not enough. Kolbe beat 3 defenders, 61 meters. But man of the match, Pieter-Steph du Toit deservedly. 28 out of 31 tackles. Absolute defensive powerhouse. It's a World Cup final. It goes down to 1 point. It was wet. It was pretty low scoring. But that's a fitting way to finish a World Cup. I'm gutted that the All Blacks couldn't get it done. We were on the edge of our seats. But we could have had it. But South Africa, man, too good at the death. Hope you guys enjoyed the World Cup coverage. 48 out of 48 games previewed and reviewed. We can kind of breathe now. There is still other rugby on, which I'll be having a watch of. But, yeah, she was a World Cup final to remember. Yeah, South Africa. You got the bloody 4th World Cup before we did. So, there we go. What else? If you want to support this channel, there's always Buy Me a Coffee down in the description. There's Patreon. I've got another channel called 2 Cents on Tour. I'll put a link up there in the thingy or down in the thingy. That's totally non-rugby related videos, but it's hopefully something a bit interesting. The other day, I went to a Chinese university to visit a famous site, and I couldn't get in because the guards wouldn't let me in, but I managed to sneak in. So I'll put a link down to that one in the description. It's something a bit lighthearted. Enjoy your Clippies and Coke, South Africans. All Blacks, I still think we can be pretty proud of the side. Sam Cane's obviously devastated. They gave it a good crack. 1 point, not to be. You guys take care of yourselves, and yeah, I will talk to you guys again soon.